I don't like. I didn't knew nothing. Really, I don't know who he is. I didn't know because what I will say, I don't know this person. And what do you want? And then I will make an exact show. I don't know what. I never knew what he wanted. Till today, I don't know what he wanted. And then I start to see what he did in the internet, no? Very sexual woman. And then what I can do with it? Mysterious. It's weird.
Your fucking films suck now anyway.
Canon Films, the home of high-powered, high-voltage motion picture entertainment. With the screen's biggest spectacles, brightest stars, and boldest lineup of explosive entertainment. We're taking motion picture excitement over the edge and your box office over the top. We're Canon Films, and we're dynamite.
So, Fando y Lis is a 1968, I guess just surreal film, surreal adventure film, surreal romance. How would you describe it if you...
I don't know, it's like, I mean, I don't know that much necessarily about Jodorowsky's like at this time,
yeah, background, how he got to this
but
point.
I assume it's some sort of he was in some sort of like surrealist or Dadaist sort of group of artists, and they were like, let's make a film, guys. And
yeah,
he was like,
you're completely right.
Yeah.
He was in what was called the Panic Movement, which
Oh.
was a surrealist art movement, and this film was actually based on a play that Jodorowsky had directed, but he didn't base it directly on the play. He based it on what he remembered of the play. So from that get-go, even if you don't know what this movie is about, you're like, uh-oh.
what I think is interesting is that he directed that play, and yet he just based this film on what he remembered about it. He wasn't like, well, I have the script, you know, I have all the stuff set, the sets, everything. He was just like, well, like a couple of years later, he was like, didn't I do a play about two people or something?
Yeah, maybe I should direct something about that. And for people who are not familiar with Jodorowsky, he recently came to kind of acclaim because a documentary was made about the Dune film that he never made.
Yeah, which is actually something I think is super interesting. There's kind of, he's someone that I was familiar with having seen The Holy Mountain several years ago, and I was really blown away by it. And then like the Dune film came out where Jodorowsky, he talks a lot at length, he shows you this book with all his pictures, and he's like, I'm gonna make this crazy movie where all this crazy stuff happens, and then all these people, I mean, let's go there, like Jodorowsky hipsters,
yeah,
are like, oh man, that Jodorowsky guy's so awesome, I wish we could see that film. I'm like, have you seen The Holy Mountain? They're like, no. And I'm like, what? Like he's made the craziest film you will ever see already.
I will not debate that with you. Holy Mountain is the craziest film you'll ever see. And it came through a magic place because of the film that came before it. But Dune is also a film that when you talk about it and they're like, would it have been crazy if they had made it? You're just like, no, it would have been like incomprehensible. Like you want it to be 7 hours long. It was just like a crazy man with a lot of crazy ideas, just kind of like spilling them on screen.
So, I mean, that's what's interesting about kind of The Holy Mountain. I'll admit, Jodorowsky hipster myself, I've only actually seen The Holy Mountain before seeing this.
What? You haven't seen El Topo?
I know, I haven't seen El Topo. So, actually, the reason I haven't seen El Topo, and we're taking a bit of a side story here, is in Toronto here, there's a famous cinema, the Cineforum, run by
Wait.
Okay.
It's not really a cinema.
Okay.
It's in some dude's house.
Yes, it's a famous cinema, as it were, like run by this guy called Reg Hart. It's basically just some burst couches and a screen in his house, and he flyers everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Yeah,
it's the same
everywhere.
thing for the last decade.
Yeah, and it's been shut down multiple times and so on. And basically, El Topo's a classic type of film that he would show. Basically, it's like a midnight movie, and because of the midnight movie experience, people don't play any of those movies anymore. Like, I mean, realistically, even in Toronto, I don't even think they play Rocky Horror Picture Show anymore.
I think they do, either at the Review or.
Probably the Review actually.
But not as much as it used to, because it used to be like a Bloor staple where it would play every month, and there was its own crew, and I think that just kind of went away.
Yeah, so I always thought, El Topo, if I went to see it, I've never been to this Reg Hart Cineforum, I should go to the Reg Hart Cineforum and see it. And, like, whatever the week or whatever I was going to go and see it, I was like, I think I'm going to see El Topo at the Cineforum. And they were like, oh, really? And then they told me this story where they were like, I went to see a film there, and he talks for like 45 minutes, probably. He just rants about how much he hates women for like 45 minutes beforehand. And then they were like, okay, so then he said, oh, you guys have stayed for this film, so you can stay for the Sex and Violence Cartoon Festival that I'm just putting on next for free, right? So he went upstairs to go to the bathroom and comes back downstairs, and he comes back downstairs, and this is a gigantic, fat, naked man just sitting on the couch, right? And he goes, what's in it? And then he's like, yeah, you get to see this for free if you've come naked. And I was like, you know what? I don't see El Topo that badly, but
Wait, you went and this
no.
Someone is telling you
just as a warning before I go there. Right?
Laser Blast Film Society member Nathaniel Wilson has gone to the Cineforum, and that's basically like the Reg Hart was like, could you go across the street and get me a few beers and then come back?
But yeah, I mean, the basic thing is Jodorowsky films have this sort of like strange sort of
just like going to the Cineforum.
Yeah,
there's like
thing,
big fat naked men.
And as much as I went to see El Topo, I mean, I just haven't got around to it, and this Fando y Lis just seemed like something that would be worth seeing. So,
Fando y Lis was on my radar when they released the Jodorowsky box set. For a long time, they were unavailable on DVD, and you'd have to get them, especially Holy Mountain and like crappy like Laserdisc rips from Japan. And when they did a Jodorowsky box set, I believe Anchor Bay put it out. They did Fando y Lis, El Topo, Holy Mountain, and special features. And Fando y Lis was one that, when reading about it, it seemed like people didn't like it. And I had only seen clips of it, and I was like, why don't people like it? Like, it seems energetic, it seems like a lot is happening, and it's black and white, so it doesn't have that, like, crazy color scheme that something like Holy Mountain does. But why don't people like it? For some reason, I never investigated that, and it just kind of went over my head. But that's why we're here right now, because me and Matthew sat down and watched Fando y Lis to discuss it.
But actually, before we discuss it, we have to remind the audience who have probably forgotten in our long side stories. This is about watching canon films.
And this was a canon film. It was actually, while it was made in 1968, it was released February 2nd, 1970. And I'm trying to wonder, like, what the attraction they saw in this. Maybe it was, like, nudity. Maybe it was weirdness. But the kind of, like, midnight movie wave, I don't believe it had really happened yet. Because El Topo was a midnight movie, which was going to come later, and Eraserhead was like the big midnight movie, to the point that the book Midnight Movies, written by Jay Haberman and Jonathan Rosenbaum, has Eraserhead on the cover. And I think Fando y Lis in that book is like a footnote. Like, they don't really talk about it. But we're going to figure out why that is in this podcast.
So, I mean, we kind of have to. I mean, as we've already described, this is a surrealist, sort of Dadaist sort of film, right? So it's actually really hard to plot summarize.
Yeah.
But if I was to describe this movie to someone, I would say probably forget all the surrealism and all that sort of stuff. To describe this movie, it is a movie about being a paraplegic woman in an abusive relationship after the apocalypse.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Because, I mean, the plot summarized is a woman who can't walk is dragged in a cart on the ground of the back of a man called Fando.
Yeah.
And they're in a gravel pit.
Yeah.
And that's it. They never leave that gravel pit. There's just gravel everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's
they go to a cemetery.
Yeah, they go a few places, but mostly a gravel pit. I mean, Jodorowsky's films, I think all of them, other than maybe the last one, Dance of Reality, are about quests, right? They're about people essentially like going to somewhere or doing a thing. Like,
I'm not familiar with all of them because he did have a weird brush with. He made a movie called Tusk, not the Kevin Smith Tusk.
True.
But I believe that one's actually a quest too. He made one called The Rainbow Thief with Peter O'Toole.
Oh yeah, he did make that film.
Yeah, he did make that one. Have you seen that one?
No, yeah.
And he made Santa Sangre, which was like his take on Italian kind of exploitation because it was produced by Claudio Argento, brother of Dario Argento.
Well, I mean, but having said that, it's still very much a quest, this kind of auteurish thing that he puts in this on. So this one sets up with a voiceover. Well, actually, after we see Lis just sitting eating a flower, looking bored.
I would like to eat your flower, honey.
He sets up the film with this voiceover introduction where he describes this. I feel like I want to imagine Jodorowsky talking, but I'm not sure.
It is Jodorowsky talking.
Yeah, I thought so. That Tar is the last city on Earth at this point, and Tar is this amazing place where we want to go for a variety of reasons, and I will explain some of these reasons. When you get there, you will get to play with a gramophone. That's the thing you'll be able to in Tar. And, this is my favourite, you will see a bird that drinks a single drop of seawater every 100 years. Which I actually like to imagine is one of those big dipping birds. And it's just so slow, you know? Like, basically, that's the type of things you'll get to do in Tar. So, and the reason that Fando wants to go is he's remembering at the beginning there's a flashback to him and his father or his grandfather. He burns a spider on a stick, or something like that, and that's what gives him this memory. Whereas his granddad, he's like, hey, what will you do if I cut your hand off? And he's like, oh well, I'll become a painter. And he's like, well, I'll cut the other hand off. He's like, oh well, I'll become a dancer. What if I cut your legs off? And instead of going, shut up, you wee dick, his granddad or dad basically keeps going until eventually he's like, I'm sorry, I'll miss you when you're gone. And he's like, well, if you ever are lonely, you should go to Tar. It's like good there. And he's like, and so he remembers that, and I suppose that's what leads him to drag Lis out of their house or whatever, to go to Tar, because all they were doing there was eating flowers, and what he was doing was throwing toy soldiers at Subbuteo Field, which, if you know what Subbuteo is, Subbuteo is a British push football game, basically. That's all they were doing. So he's like, let's go to Tar,
and off on the journey they go.
Yeah, and the first thing they appear in is like a dance party in the ruins.
Oh, you know what? This is gonna be a spoiler. I didn't like this movie very much. I think that everything will be tinged by this. But for the first 15 minutes, I was pretty much with it. And I thought that because they get in this gravel pit, and there's suddenly a dance party, and it's revealed where it's like, interestingly, where there's like someone on a piano that's on fire, like there's a singer, a transvestite of some kind in the corner.
The gravel pit is always a skank.
And then they just wander through this, and I'm like, oh, I like this. They're gonna meet surrealistic things.
Well, the only thing I ever picked up there was a case of crabs.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought it was going to go, and it actually kind of does go like that. It does, but not in a way that necessarily has any kind of a through line. So basically, they appear. There's like a piano on fire. People are just like hanging out and dancing. For some reason, and again, I'm going to another tangent. It made me think of. Have you seen Threads? The BBC nuclear Holocaust drama.
Yeah, the documentary. I think. Like the UK was bombed by nuclear bombs.
And there's sort of like a famous sequence in that film, which is after the bomb hits, and one of the characters is like wandering through the streets, and she's like seeing like women cradling her dead baby, and like some dogs fighting over a person's leg and all that. And for some reason, this sequence was like the surrealist version of it, where they go out into the apocalypse and everyone's just like dancing and playing pianos that are on fire,
The baths were always full of trolls, and the Adonis hadn't cleaned the cum off their floors since the day they opened.
But that happens, and you think, okay, maybe they'll do some stuff here. But no, what Fando does in what can be considered kind of a theme for the film is he goes, you stay here, Lis, I'm off to do something else for a while. And he just wanders off into some grasslands where he chases a woman about, right? Blindfolded, she blindfolds him or whatever, and so he chases her, and then she gets her kit off. She's standing there, and he's like, ooh, Fando, come and get me for the smoochy times. And he's like, oh yeah, and he's touching her bum, and then a man comes, and she doesn't kiss him, the man comes and starts kissing him, and he's like, oh, squeezing the buns, kissing the lady.
It's a classic, like switcheroo.
Yeah, like goes back to Liz, and she never like goes, what were you up to for the last half an hour? They just move on, and then that's the point where they basically set up the end of the film where she goes something about like, oh, you'll never like come to my grave or something like that, or a funeral or something, and he's like, yes I will, and then he sing this song which to me sounded exactly like Gogol Bordello, if you know that band, like Eugene Hutz. Like it was just like a Gogol Bordello song. Hey, I'll come to your funeral with the flowers and the dog.
There's a big market for death photos, mostly in Mexico.
And then they just wander lost and bicker for a while until they bump into their next surrealist sort of thing, which is the Hobo Pope.
Ah, that Fonzie is magic.
Hey!
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 I, Peter Griffin, hereby establish the First United Church of the Fawns.
Hey!
Fonzie, if this be your will, give me a sign.
Hey!
Fonzie be praised!
The Hobo Pope appears and he throws a statue at them.
Vengan! Vengan, por aquí!
Please rise. Now sit on it.
He molests Liz for a while, which also becomes a theme of the film.
Let us A.
And then I think they're like, oh, I've had enough of this Hobo Pope. Fob him off on the pregnant lady. He's dancing, he's happy, and this music comes back at the end of the film. And I could have sworn that Wes Anderson had used it or something.
Really? Nobody's gonna speak up. I'm the one who's gonna have to say it. All right. Genital warts!
Because we're at a point where you're like, just like stuff happens.
Stuff happens, right?
You can basically list like the stuff that happens.
And I really what I'm doing is listing it, like, because
like there's mud zombies.
Yeah, the mud zombies. The Hobo Pope. He channels Ken Farine. He's like,
when there's no room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Yeah. But Fando is such a dick, which is the main theme of this film, that Fando is a dick. He goes, haha, I'm gonna leave you there, Liz. And she's like, oh, she's crying. And she's like, don't leave me. And to be honest, this is like the least bad thing he does to her. Like, straight after that, he pushes her out of the car and like drags her around like on the dirt for ages, like
demanding for her to see these invisible flowers.
Yeah, and she's like crying and like getting like really badly gashed and dirty and stuff.
Ladies, any rug burn backs? Liars.
And then she refuses to see these invisible flowers, even though she has literally been beaten by him. So he's like, well, fine, I'm going. And he goes up to the top of the gravel pit, and he meets the Golden Girls.
Check. I'll open for a quarter. I'm in. I'll see your quarter, and I'll raise you a quarter.
The Golden Girls, who are just hanging out, they are listening to bee sounds.
With a naked man.
Yeah, who looked kind of like, Peter Dinklage, I thought.
Peter Dinklage?
Sort of, a bit. And they were basically, I actually really thought this part was very funny. They are playing cards using canned peaches as chips, and naked Peter Dinklage, is kind of a prostitute who pays out in kiss dollars every time you push a peach into his face.
So Satan might be doing her up the butt. Not twice if Satan's doing you up the butt, Granny. I love it, up the butt from Satan, everybody. You rule, Granny.
So, when they see Fando listening to the bee sounds and all that, they're like, oh, if I push a peach into this guy, he's going to kiss me up. He's going to kiss me up big style.
How old's that peach?
It's
pretty old.
Can I have that?
The fruit's not one of those things that improves with age, you realise.
And Fando's like, no way am I kissing an old granny. I'm not kissing one of the Golden Girls, not even the sexy one. Oh, he starts to run away, and he's running away, and all these old women who have appeared from nowhere are all chucking peaches at him.
Listen, maybe the peach pit isn't the right place for us.
And then he gets to the point and he stops, and he sees a bunch of women with bowling balls.
Yep.
And I was like, that's really funny.
Nice set of hooters you got there.
You have to remember that someone shows up with a whip and starts whipping and still shining.
What? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Louder!
Yes? Oh, your battery party. I'm
Hear you. Louder!
Stick a finger in my ass!
Looks like it's gonna be a 2-on-1, a menage a trois of paint.
The bowling balls.
Yeah, they start throwing bowling balls at him.
Okay, capacity. In fact, standing room only crowd for the finals of the Fairlane's Phoenix Classic.
What do we do?
Sometimes a bowler just has to face the music. And that bowler is you.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
And let's just talk about one of the reasons that made this movie a really tough watch. Well, there's multiple reasons. The sound design is so aggravating.
Oh, yeah.
Like, every time someone takes a step, it's like... And there's a lot of that. And especially that bee sound, where like they're playing cards with bees. That bee seems like it's around for like 40 hours.
Is this the soundboard?
I was using it to down-convert the signal.
Really?
The music and sound is not particularly enjoyable.
The room gets extremely cold, which causes the soundboard to expand and contract, which causes the pitch to be off key.
Well, and actually, it's not very visually interesting either.
No, I think it's a side effect of shooting in a gravel pit. You expect like Doctor Who to show up at some point.
Yeah.
And it's also because like the stock they're shooting, it's all kind of overexposed, so everyone's a little bit like white. And something about the movie is when I'd seen clips, it's pretty energetically filmed and there's intent there about what they're filming. But the problem is they're filming things that are completely uninteresting.
Looks like he's gonna enter the Holy of Holies, coitus uninterruptus.
Well, okay, so we had the bowling balls, they beat him up, they put him in his father's grave.
There's a mummy man that shows up.
No, but that's his father, I think. His father promptly escapes his grave.
The tomcat on the prowl.
Because later on he has to kill his mum, because his mum is, as I quote, she's the best at dying.
Wayne, what do you do if every time you see this one woman, you think you're gonna hurl?
I say hurl. If you blow chunks and she comes back, she's yours. If you spew and she bolts, it was never meant to be.
After his mum force feeds him, then he has a flashback to his mum's fans because she was like a singer, and they're really excited for her dying, but then he has to kill her again and bury her in what used to be his dad's grave. Yeah, exactly. But if we're talking about bad, The worm part where I was like, oh my god, if this goes any further, I'm gonna have to stop watching this.
Rule number 11. Never start out any lecture with, I know what your problem is, because I do know what my problem is, Ma. You want a hint? She's a little old lady.
Is the part where there's a guy kissing like a doll, you know, like a child's, you know, baby doll, and then he lies it down and he cuts a hole in the crotch area, and I went, I can't do this. This is why this got banned in Mexico. And what he does is still gross. He like lays snakes on the fanny hole, and I was like, but at least that doesn't take too long.
Well, it seems that he's becoming a little obsessed with playing with dolls. You know, it's weird.
I think I can help you with that.
Really?
He uses the dolls to look up girls' skirts.
Because directly after that, we have discordant cross-dressing party, which is like, again, you say, it's like,
I was shopping for some lingerie. That's still legal, isn't it?
You buying that for your wife?
No, I was picking something up for myself. I do a little cross-dressing on the weekends. You know, you'd be surprised how a nice pair of edible panties can make a guy feel sexy.
A troupe of cross-dressers appear and molest Fando, who's pure into it. He's loving it, and then they dress him up like a woman. I like to imagine it's sort of like this like train of cross-dressers. They just keep grabbing men, dressing them up, and the men join the train, basically. Like, and at the end,
are they like hypnotized?
Yeah,
or
like,
are they going?
Yeah.
Are they like, I never knew this feeling?
Just the idea that in the end, the apocalypse will just be this troupe of men all dressed as women. All the men will just be dancing madly,
it'll be a worldwide Priscilla, Queen of the Desert for everyone.
Yeah.
About the cross-dressing thing in the past, funny. Today, disturbing.
Lady, if you don't find a rabbit with lipstick amusing, you and I have nothing to say to each other.
There's a part where Les learns to remember how to walk, and they paint each other, their names all over each other, and paint the walls and have a laugh. That part is, you're like, why is this in this movie? Even in this surrealist movie, why is this in this movie? Is it so the poster or the cover looks good? Like,
that's what's on the poster.
Yeah.
Is they're all painted up. Anyway, so it's a whole bunch of bullshit.
I think it's worth noting the fantastic attention to detail this pair has demonstrated. An absolutely seamless use of props integrated into choreography that is both physically impressive and artistically moving.
But basically it's a whole bunch of nonsense that ultimately culminates in Fando chaining her to the table, attempting to get other men to sexually assault her for money or something.
You pimping her out, Superfly? Pimping her out? Nah, pimping ain't easy, and you know I'm all about the easy, okay?
Then when that doesn't pan out, he tries to handcuff her, doesn't pan out, so he again drags her about in the ground for a while. I mean, you were watching this for ages. You were watching women being abused for a long time.
It's about an hour and 36 minutes, but it feels much longer.
Ultimately what happens is, she breaks his drum, or his drum just falls off a rock nearby while he's attempting to murder her, so he kills her, and then he's sad now.
Colleagues worry that I might perjure myself on the stand.
Regarding what?
Whether I murdered dear Carolyn. Now, speaking hypothetically, if I did perjure myself, could I be prosecuted? Show me.
Mr. Sweeney, did you kill your wife?
Absolutely not.
No. Try this. As I've said on numerous occasions, I did not kill my wife.
Tricky, yes.
And that's basically it. She's dead, he's sad, and he goes to her grave, possibly with the dog, or maybe the dog's a dream, and is sad.
Maybe the dog is the dream. Wait. I think the real question, the listener that doesn't know this movie or has never seen it wants to know is, do they make it to Tar?
No, they don't. They unless Tar is like
inside all of us.
Inside all of us, you know, like, because I certainly know I have a bird that only drinks once every 100 years inside of me. His name is Stephen.
But you're living in a world of make-believe, with flowers and bells and leprechauns and magic frogs with funny little hats.
But yeah, basically it's like he's just sad, and the movie ends with him sad, and then the Wes Anderson music returns for some nice Wes Anderson-y times.
Just to remind you at the end of the movie, it's like, remember this part you really liked?
Yeah, but basically at the end of the film, we're like, that guy's a piece of shit. And
you knew that was in 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You were like, what was the point of that?
But ask yourselves, why kill your wife when divorce is an option?
Not in a way, because you didn't really see anything that interesting. Nothing was necessarily that funny, other than the bowling ball part, which I just thought was a good visual joke. You know, peaches, cut, bowling balls. You know, like, that's funny. But, like, overall, it was non-enjoyable.
Take me back. Put me to bed. I surrender. We've done enough damage tonight.
Fando y Lis is such... I mean, if he's coming in from the perspective of being like, you know, we want to create something that's aggravating and, like, gets in the audience's faces, and I guess bravo, like...
Yeah, I mean, well, but it wasn't even that super aggravating. Like, it's only when he really went there with the sound design, like the bees and the transvestite dance party, that you're really like, this is annoying. Like for most of it, you can just sort of like stay away. Or when a woman is being attacked and assaulted on screen and crying and stuff, like it's just.
It wasn't crazy enough to involve you. It just kind of like people throwing like confetti in the air. Did you know that Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate defended Fando y Lis from being banned because they were currently touring? I'm not sure what movie they were touring, but they were in Mexico at the time, and because Fando y Lis was banned, they came up. Roman Polanski is quoted as defending it because you shouldn't be able to censor stuff, because Roman Polanski himself had a lot of difficulty with censorship in Poland when he was making his movies.
That's
because, like, I mean, if you're talking about something, we were talking about midnight movies like Eraserhead. Why is Eraserhead considered a classic?
Yeah, and Eraserhead's quite annoying as well.
It is,
I love it, but it's annoying. Yeah.
But, like, what's the difference between this one and Fando y Lis? Is maybe Eraserhead has more of an endearing quality to it, while Fando y Lis, there's nothing endearing about Fando y Lis.
Yeah, like if the main guy in Eraserhead was like, I don't care, I just slapped around the girl and then like
slapped around the girl in the radiator.
In heaven nothing will be fine, biatch.
You think it would make it more difficult, or I mean, Eraserhead also the images are very composed.
Yeah.
While Fando y Lis is more like...
Yeah, Eraserhead is compelling to look at in a way that this definitely isn't. Although, definitely the black and white overexposedness we were talking about did kind of remind me of it a bit. You know, I would imagine that Lynch had seen Fando y Lis.
And you think it had been inspired by it a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Yeah.
I mean, because like El Topo went on to become a huge midnight hit, and that's why Alan Klein, the Beatles manager, got him to make the Holy Mountain. And when I was watching Fando and Lis, I went in being like, why is this one not successful while El Topo is? And I think that something that El Topo doesn't have is kind of like a genre plot. And even like Holy Mountain, which is a bunch of like crazy shit, does have the illusion of a plot and characters. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to understand why.
It just has really like fantastic stuff happening in it. It all sort of like links together in a way. Like with the Holy Mountain, you can come away with, you can say, oh, that movie had all this stuff about this in it, like the military-industrial complex and all these things you can bring out of it. Whereas the only thing you can really take out of Fando y Lis is like Fando's a dick, and you can't. I honestly, the only thing I couldn't really tell was if Jodorowsky really had anything to say about that. If he was just like, here's just a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
men are like that sometimes, or, you know, like, or
what a crazy world.
Yeah, what a crazy world, you know.
I don't know, maybe there's some big Fando y Lis defenders who are going to come after us and be like, you didn't get it! Didn't you read those title cards with those medieval paintings on them?
No, all the mail we're going to get is about the Beatles. So,
let me, if people missed it, Holy Mountain was the best thing the Beatles ever did, according to Matthew Cooper.
So, well, one of them. The other one, I mean, anyway. So we ask the question every time: is this an essential part of the canon?
No. That's a really easy one for all the reasons that we listed above.
Yeah.
And I mean, why? A good question to ask would be, why do you think Canon picked up this film?
I think it just has nudity in it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's basically
at this point they were like, wow.
And it was, it had made press. Because it had been banned, and the best thing that you can bring to any kind of audience is something that has previously been banned, because people love that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine they love this, you know?
No.
Like, I at this point, I would have placed Inga above this, to be honest, in terms of watchability, you know? So
yeah, you know what? I would probably say the same thing, which I believe that... Inga, out of all the movies that we watch, Inga has probably been the most watchable out of all the films. I'm just looking at the Canon poster here, and it says, an erotic odyssey through the perverse, the phallic, the mystic, and the sadistic. a trip into a Dantean inferno where no act is pagan or profane. So they're just selling it like they sold all their other
Exactly. I like the idea that the ad copy guy was like, a trip into a gravel pit, and they were like, can we rephrase gravel pit? What about Dante's Inferno? Yeah.
Or, sex dungeon of some kind of the sensuous flesh.
They were like, please tell us, does it have a sex barn in it? All we need is a sex barn. The last 2 films had a sex barn. Does this film have a sex barn? And he's like, there are no sex barns.
There's transvestites.
And they were like, is a transvestite a sex barn? And they were like, no, but I guess it'll do.
It'll do, Canon. It'll do.
Yeah.
So, those are our thoughts on Fando y Lis. My name's Justin the Clue.
And I'm Matthew Kumar.
Thanks for listening to Loose Cannons.
Yeah, thanks.